The scene opens with a school building. A girl carries a stack of books and says, "There we go." She sighs, complaining that they're heavy. While climbing the stairs, she grumbles that the professor always leaves everything to her. Suddenly, her foot slips. As she's about to fall, she yells, "Wah!" Just then, a hand reaches out. A boy jumps down the stairs and catches her, holding the books in his other hand. She looks up, surprised. Huh? After he steadies her, she sits on the floor, stunned. "Thank you, you're amazing," she says. The boy smiles and replies confidently, "I guess I could be." The girl thinks to herself, "What a strange person." Noticing his tie, she asks, "Are you a second year too?" He nods and says with a straight face, "Yeah, I'm Tasuku. I just transferred here." Surprised, she stands up and smiles. "I hope we can get along." Tasuku simply says, "Whatever." Excitedly, she asks, "Since we're getting along, could you help me carry these books?" Tasuku blinks. "Help?" She nods and smiles. "Yeah." He smirks slightly, looking annoyed. "I must refuse." The girl gasps. "What, you refuse that fast?" Tasuku crosses his arms. "I don't help people. From now on, I'm going to be on top." Then he walks away, saying, "That's how it is, Sia." Sia stands frozen, repeating softly, "On top?" As he walks off, Tasuku thinks to himself, "I won't help anyone anymore." Flashback: in elementary school, he had formed a detective team with 3 girls. One girl once declared that the culprit behind a string of shiny object thefts was a crow. A woman cheered. Aha! Tasuku remembered how one girl was athletic, another was a genius, and another was incredibly hardworking. People called them the genius child detectives, admiring how cute and amazing they were. Tasuku had been their assistant and felt proud to help such talented girls. When they received a certificate, he had told them, "You guys are awesome." Even after moving away, Tasuku kept helping others, even when he was alone. Now he's shown sweeping a classroom floor while some boys hang around. One of them says, "You take care of the cleaning, okay?" Tasuku nods, "Okay." The boys talk about hitting the arcade after school, leaving him behind. Tasuku's face darkens. A girl greets him. "Hey, Tasukun!" He realizes he's just being used again. He decides to work hard so that no one can stand above him. Walking confidently down the hallway, he thinks, "It feels good to walk in the center for once." Suddenly, something slams into him and knocks him flat on the floor. A girl rushes over. "I'm so sorry," other students murmur. "Don't rush so much next time." Still on the ground, Tasuku wonders, "What just hit me?" When he looks up, he sees 3 girls kneeling nearby and freezes. One girl asks, "You're the transfer student, Tasuku, right?" He nods. "Yeah." He thinks, "I don't even know anyone here. Someone like them shouldn't even exist outside this school." Another girl asks him to write his name on a folded piece of paper. Tasuku, confused, agrees. Sure, but why?" "Don't worry about it," she says. He writes his name and hands it back. "There, is that okay?" The 3 girls smile and say together, "Mission complete." One of them adds, "Wait, is that really okay?" Tasuku stares at them, thinking they look familiar. Nearby, some boys whisper, "Hey, that's Akechi. She's cute and athletic." Yazumi, she's kind and serious. And Aruse, she's smart, beautiful, and from a rich family. Tasuku starts sweating. He repeats their names in his head. Akechi, Yazumi, Aruse. Could it be? Suddenly, Akichi exclaims, "I knew it, it's him." Yazumi calls out, "Ritsu-chan, Tasuku-chan." Akichi and Aruse grab one of his hands each. Aruse says, "Shall we go?" Panicking, Tasuku shouts, "Wait, hey, where are we going?" They drag him into a room. Inside, Tasuku, still shocked, says, "I can't believe it was you guys all along." Akichi sits beside him, hugging his arm with a smug grin. "I recognized you right away," she says. Tasuku blushes. "Stop clinging to me like you used to." Akichi pouts. "Why not? We're like siblings, right?" Tasuku yells, "Don't call us siblings." Aruse laughs softly. "You're still as adorable as ever." Tasuku sighs. "You two have really changed." Aruse smirks. "Changed? How so?" Tasuku frowns. "You still tease me like always." Aruse giggles. "Sorry, I thought you liked it." Then Ritsu slams her hands on the table. "Why did you move away without saying anything?" she shouts near his ear. "You didn't even give us a goodbye or a farewell party. You could have at least told us you were leaving." Tasuku looks at her and thinks, she's still as serious as ever. As she awkwardly trailed off, Tasuku, blushing, told her she was too close. She quickly apologized and went back to her seat. Tasuku thought to himself that she had deflated, just like in the old days. Looking around, Tasuku asked, "What is this room anyway?" Akechi teased him, calling him annoyingly curious, then shouted proudly, "This is the detective club." Tasuku repeated the name in disbelief. "Detective club? What kind of suspicious club is that? How did it even get approved?" Ritsu quickly explained. It's not suspicious. We help people and solve mysteries. It's the continuation of our childhood detective team. Tasuku shrugged, replying flatly, "Good luck with that," and took a sip of tea. Aruz smiled and said, "You're talking like it has nothing to do with you, but you're already a member." Tasuku choked and spit out his tea. "Huh?" Aruz handed him the folded paper from earlier. "This is your membership form." Tasuku shouted, "I don't remember signing anything like that." When he opened the paper, his eyes widened. It really was a club registration form. "This is fraud," he yelled. Aruz grinned. "Once it's submitted, there's no going back." Yazumi sighed. "I told you this would happen." Akichi pointed at her. "You were totally fine with it too." Yazumi flustered. "I was not." Ritsu then declared, "Tasuku Mitomo, you are now the fourth member of the detective club and our assistant." Tasuku froze in shock as Akichi and Aruze grabbed his hands. Aruz smiled. "Perfect timing. We already have our first request. Let's get started right away." Tasuku screamed, "What?" "The first case. On the school grounds," Aruze explained the request. "We're investigating possible infidelity. That boy over there has been acting distant for weeks. I want to find out if he's been netorara, stolen by another girl." Yazumi blushed and repeated the word netorare softly, while Akichi tilted her head. "What does that mean?" Tasuku groaned. "Shut up!" As Aruz began to explain, Tasuku quickly cut her off. Akichi, pretending not to notice, said brightly, "It's been a while since we had a case. With Tasuku here, I'll give it my all." Tasuku shouted, "I was dragged here, I'm not your assistant." Akichi asked, "Why not?" Tasuku crossed his arms proudly. "Because I'm going to be on top." Before he could finish, Akichi pointed ahead. "The target's on the move." They spotted the boy walking away. "Confirmed," Aruz said. Akichi immediately ran after him. "I'll catch him!" Tasuku yelled. "Wait, don't go alone!" But she was already gone. Watching her sprint off, he thought, "She's still as fast as ever. Idiot." Then he turned to the others. "Let's go too." Yazumi nodded nervously. Suddenly, Yazumi tripped and crashed into a row of parked bicycles. The bikes fell like dominoes. "Wah!" she screamed. Tasuku gawked. "What are you doing?" Blushing, Yazumi said, "Sorry, I bumped into someone's bike." Before she could get up, a soccer ball hit her head, making her fall again. Tasuku sighed. It's like a chain reaction of bad luck. Lying on the ground, Yazumi whimpered, "Can you help me up, Tasuku?" He grumbled, "What the heck are you doing?" Just then, Aruz called out from behind him. Tasuku turned. "What now?" Aruz replied dramatically. "I'm more of an armchair detective. I solve cases with my brain. My legs have reached their limit. Can you carry me?" Tasuku flatly refused. "Absolutely not." Aruz smirked. "Are you sure you want to give up the chance to carry someone as brilliant as me?" She shook her legs for effect. Tasuku sighed. "For someone with tired legs? You sure talk a lot." Suddenly, Akichi's voice shouted behind him, "Found you!" Before he could react, she tackled him from behind. They both crashed to the ground, Akichi landing right on top of him. "Tasuku!" she gasped. He yelled, "What are you doing, you idiot?" Yazumi and Aruz stood there speechless. Tasuku muttered, "I thought I was chasing the target. Did I mess up?" 3 hours later, they regrouped on the school grounds. Akichi scratched her head. "We completely lost the target." Tasuku sighed, thinking, weren't these girls supposed to be amazing detectives? They're a total mess now. Nearby, some boys whispered, "The detective club is at it again. They're cute and popular, but if only they weren't in that weird club. They wouldn't be called the Three Unfortunate Beauties." The three girls froze. Tasuku turned toward them, stunned. "Wait, Three Unfortunate Beauties?" The girls laughed awkwardly. Tasuku blinked. "Expelled?" he asked, confused. The scene cut to them sitting on a bench. Yazumi confirmed, "Yeah." Tasuku asked, "How did it come to this?" Aruse explained, "We kind of formed the detective club without permission." Tasuku's eyes widened. "You didn't have permission?" Aruse continued. "We tried our best, but we kept failing and causing problems, so requests stopped coming in. Eventually, everyone at school started calling us the Unfortunate Beauties." Tasuku said flatly, "Stop emphasizing the beauties part." With a serious face, Yazumi added, "The teacher warned us. If we cause any more trouble, we'll be expelled." Tasuku reacted in disbelief. "You're kidding." "It's true," I replied. Tasuku looked tense and muttered, "You guys are finished." Aki frowned. "That's so mean." Tasuku asked why they didn't just quit the detective club, given the situation. The girls immediately protested. "We really hate that idea." Akichi declared that a detective couldn't reach their full potential without an assistant. Tasuku, confused and tense, only managed a short, "Ha." In his mind, he thought that he really didn't want to be an assistant anymore. But when he saw the girls looking down sadly, he couldn't help but wonder, what is this feeling? He sighed. Fine, just this once. Aki looked at him in surprise as Tasuku said he had an idea and asked them to hear him out. Sitting casually on a wall, he explained that they would identify the affair partner by tailing them. When Akichi asked how, Tasuku said, "We'll find them using this," and showed them a social media account. Aki was shocked. The target's social media. Exactly. Tasuku confirmed. We'll check who's been interacting with the account recently. If any of their posts match the target's habits, that's our suspect. After some scrolling, Tasuku suddenly pointed. Look, I found one. Wow, you really did, Aki said, amazed. Well, of course, Tasuku replied confidently. Someone aiming to be the best wouldn't miss it. However, he added that they still couldn't be sure yet. Just then, Aruz interrupted with a smug grin. Heh, that's where I come in. Tasuku frowned. Hey, what are you planning? Aruz smiled slyly. Just a little trick. She made a call to her household, and Tasuku thought to himself how scary that sounded coming from a noble family's daughter. Moments later, Aruz announced, I already got some information. Yazumi leaned forward. Ah, this person? You know them? Tasuku asked. Not really, Yazumi said. But I know their usual commute time and route. Tasuku blinked in disbelief. How do you even know that? I memorized most of the student body's routines, Yazumi admitted calmly. Tasuku groaned. You're trying way too hard. Anyway, let's hurry before it's too late, Aki said quickly. Wait, hey, I can't run that fast, Aruz complained as they took off. While running down the road, Akichi suddenly pointed ahead. There they are. Bingo, Aruz confirmed. They hid behind a building and watched a boy and girl together. Aki urged, Tasuku, take a picture, quick. I know, Tasuku replied tensely, snapping the photo. This should be enough as evidence. The girl smiled, but the boy suddenly noticed them and ran toward them furiously. He swung a punch, hitting Tasuku right in the face and knocking him down. Tasuku! Akichi screamed. The boy shouted, What are you guys doing, taking pictures of us? Aruz rushed to Tasuku's side. Tasuku, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, he said with blood dripping from his nose. No, you're not, the girls cried out together. The boy muttered, What the hell is wrong with this guy? And shoved Tasuku aside before running off. Damn it, Yazumi said, her voice trembling. Tasuku-kun. Tasuku wiped his bloody nose and thought, Why am I acting as their shield? Why am I doing something so assistant-like? I said I wouldn't be one anymore. When Aki demanded, Why did you do something so reckless? Tasuku replied, How should I know? My body just moved on its own. The girls stared at him in silence. Damn, that hurts, Tasuku muttered. But at least the evidence is safe. The case is solved, right? Not yet, Aki corrected. How dare he hurt Tasuku? Tasuku blinked. Huh? Both Aruse and Yazumi declared, We won't forgive him. I'll chase him, everyone, follow me, Aki shouted, running ahead. Okay, Aruz replied, while Tasuku protested, Wait, we already have the evidence. The case is solved. Aki ignored him, grabbed the top of an iron gate, and vaulted over it with incredible speed. Tasuku stood frozen in shock. Wow. Let's go, Yazumi said. Aruz added, We'll get ahead by car. They got into a car, and Tasuku groaned. But we already have what we need. How do we get ahead of them? Yazumi asked. Listen, Aruz shouted to the driver. No one can outrun Hiyori with pure leg power, but the target will realize that soon and try to blend into a crowd. Head for the main street. Yes, ma'am, the driver said. Tasuku sighed. No, like I said, Yazumi cut him off. Okay, now it's my turn to give it my all. Meanwhile, the boy ran between buildings, panting. I got away. But a voice called out, Did you really think that? Aruz, Yazumi, and Tasuku stood blocking his path. Too bad, Aruz said coolly. What? I was sure I lost you, the boy shouted. I can easily predict how someone like you would run, Aruz replied. And from here, Tasuku added, it's all about persistence. Yazumi scanned every passing face. Not this person. Not them either. The boy cursed. Damn it, who the hell are you people? Suddenly, Akechi jumped down in front of him. The boy screamed in fear and fell backward. We're the detective club, the girls said in unison, and we won't forgive anyone who hurts our assistant. Tasuku looked at them, moved. You guys really are great detectives. But then he wondered, why were they so desperate? The case was already solved. Just then, a voice called out, Hey, you there? 2 police officers appeared. What's going on here? Is this a fight? You'd better come with us, one said. Tasuku panicked. No, it's not what it looks like. Later, they were all standing in the school staff room. The teacher scolded them. Seriously, even if it was a misunderstanding, don't cause trouble with the police again. Yes, Yazumi answered quietly. The teacher sighed. This time it involved other students, so I'll let it slide. But if it happens again, you'll all be expelled. The girls all answered at once. Yes. Tasuku sighed inwardly, thinking, why am I being punished too? As they left the staff room, Aki complained, the case is solved, but in the end, we still got scolded by the teacher. Yeah, Arus agreed. And to think, Aki continued, the girl turned out to be the one cheating in the relationship. The boy only cheated out of spite because his girlfriend cheated first, Yazumi said. That's so indecent, Arus muttered, sighing. Ugh, things got messy. They walked down the hallway with Tasuku following behind. Suddenly, the girls called out, Tasuku? He looked up. Sorry, they said together. He stopped walking. Akechi spoke first. I really wanted you to stay in the detective club as our assistant, but forcing you to join would be unfair. Aruz nodded. Yeah, let's just pretend that club application never happened. Wait, Tasuku interrupted. The girls turned to him. You girls might be a bit of a mess now and then, he began. Akechi chuckled softly. Tasuku continued. Yeah, we failed a lot, but you all still shine. And as long as things stay this way, I'll always be stuck in your shadow, unable to become the best. So, what I mean is, I'll join the detective club. The girls froze, then blushed and smiled. What, really? Aki exclaimed. To think Tasuku would be our assistant again, Aruz said, surprised. I'm so happy, Yazumi added softly. Tasuku smirked. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not joining as an assistant, I'm joining as your rival. As a detective? Akechi asked. Really? Aruz blinked. Tasuku frowned. What's with the way you're all talking? He thought to himself, and so my life as a detective began again, with the same members from my elementary school days, this time not as an assistant but as an equal. But at that time, I had no idea another plan was already in motion. Yazumi thought happily, Tasuku-kun joined the detective club. Akechi smiled, thinking, now we can work together as detectives again. And Aruse, blushing, thought, this time for sure. I'll make Tasuku my very own assistant. All three girls shared the same secret thought, this time for sure. Tasuku's narration continued. I'll say it again. The relationship between a detective and their assistant can almost be called romantic. The scene then shifted to the school's sports field. Students were playing football. The ball flew high and someone shouted that it had gone that way. Tasuku leapt into the air and caught it perfectly. Whoa, awesome, one player shouted. Indeed, another agreed. He's almost as athletic as Akechi, a third added. Yeah, another chimed in. He's smart too, though I still think Arus is sharper. And he doesn't have the hard-working charm of Ritsu. Tasuku overheard everything and smirked. Even if they're all clumsy, a genius is still a genius, he thought proudly. Sweating, he muttered, just you wait. I'll become the best and surpass you all. Hey, Tasuku-kun, what are you mumbling about? You lost the ball, a teammate yelled. Tasuku froze. As expected, he's still weird, another laughed. Later, the clubroom door swung open, and Akechi, Yazumi, and Arus entered. Hey, Tasuku, Akechi called. Sorry we're late, Yazumi said. The teacher scolded us again. Yeah, sorry for the wait, Arus added politely. Tasuku ignored them, busy sweeping the floor. What are you doing? Akechi asked. Tasuku replied smugly. A top leader must always keep his surroundings clean. Akechi and Yazumi exchanged glances, both thinking, what does he even mean by top? Arus giggled. It's looking tidy already. It's still a work in progress, Tasuku said, embarrassed. Don't get me wrong, I didn't do this for you or anything. Thank you, Arus said with a gentle smile. Tasuku muttered that the room was still too messy. Then he noticed a suspicious-looking box in the corner. What's this? He asked, opening it. Yazumi panicked. Wait. Inside were letters of recommendation for expulsion and apology notes. Tasuku stared in shock. Expulsion notices. What is all this? Yazumi quickly knelt down and shut the box. Let's not worry about the details. Let's just do our best today too, okay? She said nervously. Tasuku frowned. Wait a second, what's with that pile of expulsion and apology letters? Aruz smiled awkwardly. Our history. Tasuku looked at them all, thinking that he knew they had been close to expulsion before, but he hadn't realized it was this bad. Yazumi turned away, covering her face. I can feel his judgmental stare, she muttered. Tasuku asked, how did you even manage to keep the detective club running like this? And why go so far? The three girls looked at each other, confused. Huh? They said together. Aki blushed. Because... Yazumi hesitated. Well, Aruz covered her mouth softly. You see, but inside all three of them thought, I can't say it. Those words still linger in my heart. A flashback followed. Back when they were children, Tasuku had smiled at them. Wow, you're all amazing, he'd said. Akechi laughed happily. Yazumi replied, it's thanks to you, Tasuku. We could do so much because you were our assistant. Tasuku had grinned brightly. Then I'll be your assistant for life. Back in the present, all three girls blushed and silently thought, Yes, please stay with us forever. Each remembered what Tasuku had meant to them, like the pillar of a family, reliable, kind, supportive, someone amazing, far beyond what mere detectives like them could ever be. After Tasuku moved away, that irreplaceable presence disappeared. The feelings they'd buried for so long had finally built up to this moment. Yazumi imagined Tasuku hugging her from behind and saying, "You're working hard, Yazumi." She smiled softly, thinking she wanted someone that dependable by her side forever. Akechi imagined him walking beside her, saying, "Can we rely on you?" She replied, "Yeah," thinking that if it were Tasuku, she'd always feel safe, even when she lost control. Arus imagined walking with him hand in hand. He said, "Let me lend you my shoulder," and she replied, "Thank you." She thought about how she had always wanted the kind Tasuku to be her assistant. Ritsu clenched her fists in determination. "That's why I have to become a detective worthy of having him as my assistant," she thought. Akechi made a silent vow. "And this time, I'll make sure he chooses me alone." All three shared the same resolve. "That's why I've kept the detective club alive all this time." Tasuku suddenly felt something strange. Looking at the girls' serious faces, he tensed. What's with this intense atmosphere? Wait, no way. Are they trying to challenge me as detectives? But then he realized that if he expelled them, he'd lose his chance to prove he was the best. The girls, meanwhile, all had the same thought. First, they needed to gain trust and get their club officially recognized. Coincidentally, everyone's goals aligned. They sat on the sofa together. Akechi announced, "To get more cases, we need to promote ourselves." Tasuku, sitting nearby, sighed. "We don't even have a single request right now." Akechi agreed, and Yazumi, who was standing close by, asked, "So how should we promote ourselves? Last time was a total disaster." Tasuku looked shocked. "Wait, you already failed once? What did you do?" Arus smiled confidently. "I have a good idea." Tasuku raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what kind of idea?" Arus sipped her tea and smirked. "I'll contact the Arus Group's information department." Tasuku frowned. "Why?" She explained calmly. "We can make a list of students who have problems, like study issues, money troubles, or relationship problems, and then threaten them into submitting requests." Tasuku's jaw dropped. "Why are you saying that with a smile?" Arus blinked innocently. "Is that bad? I thought it was a good idea." Tasuku exploded. "It's bad from start to finish. At least try not to bother people." Akechi proudly stepped forward. "Then leave it to me," Tasuku thought nervously. "That makes me even more worried." They headed toward the broadcast room and stopped outside. "The broadcast room?" Tasuku asked. Arus nodded. "Yep." He frowned. "What are you planning to do?" Suddenly a voice called out. "Hello!" Akechi burst in, shouting, "We've come to hijack the broadcast room." Tasuku panicked instantly. "It's already doomed!" Inside, one girl gasped, "The detective club? Why are you here?" Akechi beamed. "We want you to promote us on the school broadcast." The first girl yelled, "No way! Last time you borrowed it, you destroyed almost all our equipment." Tasuku covered his face in despair. "They have a criminal record." Akechi pleaded, "We won't break anything this time, just please promote us." The two girls responded by throwing books at them. Tasuku shouted, "Stop them, Yazumi!" Yazumi nervously replied, "Yes." She stepped forward, but tripped over a wire connected to a box on a shelf. "Ritsu-chan, watch out!" Akechi cried. Arus and Tasuku ran toward her, just as the shelf and books came crashing down. "Akechi!" Tasuku yelled, rushing over. "Are you okay?" Akechi groaned weakly. "Probably okay." Tasuku shouted, "How is this okay?" Then he realized Yazumi had fallen right on top of Akechi. "How did this happen in just a few seconds?" Yazumi apologized. "Sorry, when I trip, stuff like this just happens." Tasuku groaned. "What kind of luck is that?" The broadcast club girl screamed, "That cord's for expensive equipment. Be careful." Tasuku yelped, "Eek!" Akechi waved it off. "Don't worry, if something breaks, I'll just huff and zip it back together." Tasuku thought miserably, "I don't even know what that means, but please don't do it." The girl snapped, "So you're just here to wreck the broadcast club again?" Tasuku protested, "No, we're not." But before he could stop her, Arus stepped to the mic. Is this the broadcast button?" "Hey, don't touch that!" the girl shouted, grabbing Arus's arm. She accidentally pushed Tasuku, who stumbled and fell into Arus. "Ah!" Tasuku's hand hit the volume knob, turning it up, while his other hand accidentally squeezed Arus's chest. He froze. The entire school heard Aruse moan through the loudspeakers. Embarrassed, she said, "Tasuku-kun, you naughty boy." Tasuku shouted, "This isn't the time for jokes." Then the door slammed open. "Hey, what are you doing? Wait, it's the detective club again." Akechi screamed, "Ah, teacher, run." Later, as they caught their breath outside, Akechi sighed, "Ha, in the end we got caught." Yazumi muttered, "3 apology letters this time, huh?" Tasuku looked at them, all slumped and miserable. Arus sighed, "Let's call it a day." Tasuku nodded. I'll finish cleaning up before I go home. Okay, Akechi said. See you tomorrow, Arus added. As they left, Tasuku sighed. The future's looking rough. Then he noticed a small box nearby. What's this? The next day after school, the three girls were walking together. Yazumi asked, So what should we do about the promotion? Akechi thought for a moment, then gasped. Huh? They spotted Tasuku standing nearby, handing something out. Arus called out, You're here. Yazumi asked curiously, What are you doing? Tasuku looked at her and said, Can't you tell just by looking? He held out a paper. I'm handing out flyers. Akechi took one and looked it over. Wow, these really stand out. Arus blinked. When did you even make these? Tasuku explained. After I finished cleaning yesterday, I found the old flyers you made, Arus. Some were just text, some were only pictures, and a few looked like election posters. They were all kind of off, so I combined and rearranged them into something usable. He laughed lightly. I did my best. Akechi nodded. Still, the final version really stands out. Tasuku smiled. Yeah, each of Arus's designs was a bit off on its own, but when I mixed all three together, they turned out surprisingly well. As he walked away, the girls blushed. With this, Tasuku added, we might actually get some requests. Yazumi smiled softly. Tasuku is really amazing. Akechi agreed. You're so reliable. Tasuku smirked proudly. Of course, wait, hold on. Why am I doing something that feels like an assistant's job? Akechi grinned. Has being an assistant become second nature to you? Tasuku froze, realizing it. I didn't even notice I was doing it. He frowned with a tense face. The girls exchanged glances and smiled warmly. Akechi, Yazumi, and Arus all thought the same thing. Each of our flyers was a bit off, but when combined, they turned out great. And only someone like you, Tasuku, could make that happen. Without warning, the three of them hugged him tightly. Tasuku blinked in confusion. What's going on? Arus smiled. Huh? Akechi and Yazumi quickly said together, Nothing at all. A week later, Tasuku sat with a tense expression. It had been 7 days since they handed out the flyers, but still no requests had come in. They had acted so confident before, and now it was just awkward. Yazumi and Aruse sat slumped on the sofa when the door suddenly burst open with a loud crash. Everyone, Akechi shouted, kicking the door wide. Tasuku turned in alarm and stared at the broken door in horror. Yazumi jumped up. Is it true? Akechi grinned. Yup, we've finally got a request. Tasuku sat by the shattered door, thinking grimly, they're really going to ignore that she broke it, huh? Akechi puffed out her chest. This must be thanks to the flyers. Tasuku, looking smug, replied, Of course it is. No way we wouldn't get a request after my brilliant distribution work. Arus raised an eyebrow. You sure don't look like the same guy who was pale a minute ago. Tasuku ignored that and asked, So what kind of request is it? Akechi leaned forward. It's actually a pretty crazy one. Yazumi frowned. A crazy request? Arus looked serious too. What kind of request? Tasuku smirked confidently. Perfect timing. No matter how tough it is, I'll solve it and prove I'm the top. Akechi smiled. Tasuku! He grinned back. The scene shifted to a park. Tasuku held a piece of paper and sighed. Seriously? We're looking for a cat? Akechi nodded proudly. Yep, Tasuku frowned. How is that a crazy request? Akechi replied cheerfully. Well, isn't it wild that we get to play with animals legally? Tasuku groaned. You just want an excuse to play. Akechi pointed at the flyer. But look, isn't the cat cute? Tasuku squinted. Cute, really? What's up with its face? He looked around. Wait, where are Ritsu and Sia? Are they late? Akechi answered, Yeah, they went to the convenience store to print posters. They should be back soon. Tasuku sighed, uneasy. I can't shake the feeling something's going to go wrong. He stood up. All right, we'll stake out the area where the cat was last seen. Akechi blinked. A stakeout? Tasuku nodded. Yeah, but I doubt it'll go smoothly. Akechi clenched her fists. It will, I'll make it work. Tasuku raised an eyebrow. You? The reckless one? You expect me to believe you can sit still? She pouted. Hey, I can wait if I want to. They both sat down. Akechi shifted restlessly in her seat. Tasuku sighed. You're really fidgety. Why don't you walk around instead? I'll stay and claim the glory. Suddenly, Akechi stood up and pointed. Wait, Tasuku! That kid's in trouble! Huh? He said, confused. Come on. She grabbed his hand and started running. What? Wait! You just said you could sit still! He yelled as she dragged him along. They reached a small girl staring up at a tree, crying. A balloon was stuck in the branches. My balloon! The girl whimpered. Akechi crouched down. Hey, are you okay? The girl sniffled. Don't worry, Akechi said confidently. Leave it to us. Tasuku stared blankly. Wait, what exactly do you mean by that? Before he could stop her, Akechi grabbed his shirt and climbed onto his shoulders. Tasuku shouted, "What? What are you doing? I can't reach it unless you let me sit up here," she said, steadying herself. "Stop messing around, I'm not doing assistant stuff," he yelled, trying to keep balance. As he reached up to steady her legs, she flinched and blushed. "Hiya, that tickles." Tasuku froze, face red. "What? Hey, don't make weird noises up there." The little girl got her balloon back and left. Akechi sighed in relief, saying that was a good thing. Tasuku, still irritated, asked if she could do something about her sense of personal space. She casually replied that they were close, so he shouldn't worry. He frowned and said he definitely did worry. As they walked along the sidewalk, Tasuku said they needed to head back. Suddenly, Akechi spotted someone else in trouble. Tasuku tried to get her attention, shouting for her to listen. But she was already helping, carrying an old woman on her back. Tasuku ended up carrying a small boy, and Akechi helped a man pick up items from the ground. By evening, Akechi smiled and said that helping people felt great. Tasuku, exhausted, reminded her about the original request. She froze and gave an awkward, "Ah." He grabbed her cheek, scolding her for dragging him around and treating him like her assistant. Akechi protested, saying it wasn't like that. Her detective instincts told her to go that way. Tasuku shouted that she was terrible at making excuses and that things never worked out that conveniently. Just then, they noticed a cat stuck on a balcony. Akechi shouted, "There it is." The cat looked like it was about to fall. Tasuku panicked, saying that if it fell from that height, it wouldn't survive. Akechi called his name, saying she'd climb up to rescue it. Turning to him, she said, "I'll leave the rest to you." Tasuku blinked. "What does that even mean?" he yelled, shocked as she started climbing. "Wait, Akechi," he called. She shouted for the cat to hold on. It meowed and slipped. She leapt backward, catching it midair. Tasuku saw them falling and ran toward them, realizing too late that that's what she meant by, "leave the rest to you." He dashed forward and caught her just in time. Akechi blushed in his arms. Tasuku scolded her for being so reckless. Akechi hesitated and said that what she actually meant was for him to handle things if the cat escaped again. Tasuku was stunned. She added that from that height, she'd probably have been fine anyway. Then she smiled and praised him. "As expected, I can rely on you." Tasuku shouted, "Who are you calling a reliable assistant?" and stood up, declaring he wasn't one. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Tasuku, Akechi!" It was Yazumi and Aruse. Yazumi said they'd finally found them. Akechi proudly announced they had completed the request. Aruse asked if they were a little late. Yazumi scolded them, reminding them she had told them to wait. Tasuku tried to defend himself, saying it wasn't his fault. Aruse looked at Akechi and asked if her face was red. Still holding the cat and blushing, Akechi denied it, saying it was just because the cat was cute. Aruse raised an eyebrow. Is that so?" she said. Akechi, still flustered, thought to herself, "He princess carried me." The next day at school, Tasuku thought about everything. In the end, he'd ended up doing assistant work after all. But since they were handing out flyers again that day,
Hey guys, sorry for mid-editing, but I noticed a lot of you are watching my videos without subscribing. Our subscribe ratio is literally close to 0. I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Thanks. Now, back to the recap.
he decided he definitely wouldn't lose this time. As he walked down the hall, someone called his name. It was Yazumi, out of breath. She asked him to follow her. Tasuku asked why she was in such a hurry. Yazumi showed him a paper. It was a notice from the student council, a club room suspension order. Tasuku's eyes widened. "Seriously?" he muttered. In the student council room, Yazumi protested loudly, refusing to accept the decision. She demanded to know why their club room was being suspended. Sitting calmly at her desk was Pseudo Ray, the student council's second-year executive of general affairs. With a sigh, Ray said that, as stated in the notice, they couldn't lend a room to an unofficial club. Yazumi was shocked. "So you're refusing to recognize us at all?" she asked. Ray replied bluntly, "That's right, not even a little." Tasuku thought to himself that it was lucky Aruse and Akechi weren't around since they were out distributing flyers. Ray then reminded them that using any classroom for personal purposes wasn't allowed either. Yazumi hesitated, caught off guard. Ray mocked her hesitation and told them to clear out quickly. Tasuku pointed out that Ray was technically using the room for personal purposes too. She brushed it off, calling him annoyingly picky. Then, with a smirk, she called their detective club a bunch of losers, saying what they did was just a lame imitation of the student council's work. Both Yazumi and Tasuku were stunned. "Huh?" Tasuku muttered. Ray laughed, saying they always failed and were incompetent, including him, the newcomer. Yuzumi stood up and faced her head-on, demanding Rei take those words back. Rei refused, saying it was simply the truth. Then she smirked again and challenged them. If they were so upset, why not try to accomplish something on their own? Yuzumi, fired up, agreed. Fine. We'll handle any task that comes our way. With just the two of us, she grabbed Tasuku by the collar, shouting they could do it. Tasuku, uncomfortable, asked her to let go and wondered aloud if she secretly hated him. Flustered, Yuzumi quickly denied hating him. She said it was just embarrassing to be around him. Tasuku sighed and said that sounded like the same thing as hating him. Rei, watching them argue, commented that they seemed awfully close and told them to follow her. She led them into the library's storage room. Tasuku looked around and asked if this was really the place. Rei confirmed it was, then showed them a photo of a book. Their task, she explained, was to find that exact book. Yuzumi asked why that book in particular. Rei replied that the student council received all kinds of requests, and this was one of them. Their deadline, she said, was the next morning. If they failed, she warned mockingly, they should be ready for the consequences. As she turned to leave, she added that she didn't expect them to succeed anyway, but told them to try their best. Once Rei was gone, Tasuku turned to Yuzumi with determination. We'll do it, he said firmly. Yuzumi agreed without hesitation. Tasuku added that he was going to make Rei regret ever looking down on them, his expression dark and serious. Yuzumi told him he was overreacting, but he brushed it off, saying finding one book couldn't be that hard. When he tried to open the storage room door, it wouldn't budge. Yuzumi asked what was wrong, and Tasuku said the door felt strangely heavy. With some effort, he forced it open, only for both of them to freeze in shock. The room was overflowing with books stacked haphazardly everywhere. Tasuku muttered in disbelief at the sight, and Yuzumi pointed out that they were expected to find just one book before morning. As Tasuku stepped inside, a tall stack of books suddenly wobbled and nearly collapsed on him. He dodged just in time and warned Yuzumi to be careful, since she always got caught in these kinds of situations. Right on cue, another pile of books toppled onto her. Yuzumi yelped as she got buried. Tasuku groaned, scolding her for rushing in. Dazed but smiling, Yuzumi said they should still give it their best. Tasuku hesitated for a moment, then clenched his fist and told himself he couldn't back down now. He had to rise to the top. Nothing was impossible. Time passed, and the clock on the wall ticked closer to 7 p.m. Tasuku sat on the floor, exhausted. They hadn't found anything yet. The room looked like an overflowing otaku's bedroom, with barely any free space. He called out to Yuzumi to ask how things were going, but got no response. When he turned to look, he noticed a massive pillar of books stacked neatly in one corner. Confused, he walked over, wondering if she had been buried again. But what he saw stunned him. Yuzumi was organizing books at incredible speed, completely focused. Tasuku realized this was her real strength, her dedication, and swore not to be outdone. He joined in again, working beside her. At one point, Yuzumi sat down right next to him, still focused on her task. Tasuku blushed, surprised at how unfazed she seemed by how close they were sitting. He couldn't focus, and muttered to himself that he couldn't concentrate at all. He almost said her name, but stopped himself. He realized that if he pointed out how close they were, knowing Yuzumi, it would just turn into an awkward scene. So he decided to quietly move away while she was still focused. But as he stood up, his foot slipped. He stumbled and nearly fell, landing face first, right next to Yuzumi. Their faces were inches apart. Startled, she turned bright red and stammered that it was way too close. Tasuku panicked too, telling her to calm down, or she'd mess up the book she just organized. Still working, Yuzumi muttered that he was a pervert. Tasuku groaned that it was an accident, and that now they'd have to start over again. She sighed in frustration. Tasuku looked at the clock again and said it was almost the end of the day. He suggested they give up for now and come back early the next morning. But to his surprise, Yuzumi refused. She said she was staying. Tasuku blinked, surprised, and she explained that she didn't want to lose the detective club he had helped build. Seeing how determined she was, he softened. Suddenly, she heard a sound behind her and turned around. Tasuku was sitting beside her again. He said he was just refocusing and they should finish quickly. Yuzumi smiled and agreed. The two continued searching together, going through the piles one by one. Eventually, Akichi arrived, holding a book above her head triumphantly. Found it, she announced. Tasuku smiled in relief. Finally, let's head home, he said. Yuzumi nodded, but when they reached the door and tried to open it, it wouldn't move. Panic spread across her face as she shouted that the door was stuck. Tasuku froze. This had turned into a serious problem. As the sun began to set, Akichi and Aruse were finishing their flyer distribution. Aruse sighed, saying he was tired. Akichi mentioned that Tasuku and Yuzumi still hadn't come back, and wondered if something had happened to them. Aruz shrugged, unsure. Akichi frowned slightly, feeling uneasy. Maybe those two got themselves into some kind of trouble, she said. Meanwhile, Tasuku and Yazumi sat on the floor of the storage room, both looking defeated. Yazumi complained that the door still wouldn't budge and that her phone battery had died, so they couldn't call for help. She started to panic, declaring that they were doomed before trying to calm down. Tasuku reassured her, saying that even if things got worse, the student council would probably check the room in the morning. Yazumi nodded nervously, noting that it meant it would just be the two of them. Until then. They sat in silence for a while. Tasuku fidgeted, thinking how awkward the situation was. He wondered what he was even supposed to say in moments like this. He used to feel more relaxed around her. The silence dragged on painfully. He tried to pull himself together, but the heat in the room wasn't helping. Loosening his tie, he glanced at Yazumi. She was sweating beside him, her shirt clinging slightly, making him blush and quickly look away. He groaned internally, thinking that staying calm was impossible in this situation. Trying to break the tension, he suddenly suggested, "Let's try to figure out a way to escape." Yazumi, startled, responded with confusion, but quickly agreed. As they both stood up, Tasuku admitted that he wasn't sure how they should go about escaping. Yazumi looked around and asked if they could get out through the window. Tasuku dismissed the idea, explaining that he had already tried earlier, but it wouldn't open. Yazumi then pointed to the higher window and asked if he could try that one. Tasuku replied that he hadn't tried it yet, but added that they didn't even know if they could reach it. Determined, Yazumi decided to climb up. Tasuku, realizing what she was about to do, closed his eyes in frustration and protested, wondering why he had to help with something so assistant-like. Yazumi didn't see the issue, explaining that she might fall off the chair if he didn't hold it steady. Tasuku argued that he could be the one climbing instead, but she immediately shot back, saying there was no way she'd let him do something that dangerous. Tasuku countered by asking what about her, and she casually reminded him that she used to get hurt all the time back then. Tasuku sighed internally, thinking that wasn't something she should be proud of, but he did remember she had often injured herself in the past. As she stood on the chair, he nervously asked if she was okay. She hummed distractedly while peering at the window, but then Tasuku's eyes accidentally caught sight of her panties. He quickly turned his head, flustered. Yazumi groaned in frustration, reporting that there was no luck with the window either. When she looked down and realized where Tasuku's eyes had been, she panicked, blushing furiously and accusing him of peeking. Tasuku immediately denied it, insisting he hadn't looked at all. Yazumi climbed down, still blushing heavily. Now standing on the opposite side of the room, she kept a noticeable distance from him. Tasuku thought to himself that things had only gotten even more awkward. He noticed her mumbling under her breath, thinking she must have been chanting a curse out of embarrassment. Desperate to escape the tension, Tasuku tried thinking of another solution. Then it hit him. Calling out to Yazumi, he told her to clear away all the stacks of books. She was confused at first, but he explained that since they were in the prep room, there had to be a connecting door to the library somewhere. Yazumi lit up, realizing he was right. As they hurriedly moved books aside, Tasuku spotted something and shouted excitedly. They had found a hidden door. Yazumi praised him, saying he'd done well. Tasuku tried to open it but grunted in frustration. He told Yazumi that something heavy was blocking it from the other side and asked her to help him push. Yazumi hesitated, blushing as she looked at his back, saying she couldn't. Tasuku, confused, asked why. Embarrassed, she blurted that there was no way she'd do something as lewd as pushing his back. Tasuku yelled in disbelief, asking how on earth that was lewd, and reminding her she could just push the door instead. Yazumi quickly realized her mistake and agreed. They both positioned themselves to push. Tasuku called out that they'd push on the count of 3. Yazumi nervously agreed. Tasuku counted to 1, then again, readying himself. Just as they were about to push, their fingers brushed. Yazumi saw his hand and shrieked, blushing hard. The door gave way, causing both of them to tumble forward and fall to the ground. Tasuku, still dazed, stammered that they'd somehow managed to get out. Yazumi, her face completely red, stuttered, calling him Tasuku. He confirmed, still catching his breath, that they had indeed escaped. But Yazumi fixated on the fact that he had held her hand earlier. Tasuku was confused, not recalling it. He explained that everything had happened in a blur, so he didn't remember much. She asked if he really touched her unconsciously. Tasuku quickly apologized, saying that if touching her made her uncomfortable, he was sorry. Flustered but honest, Yazumi replied that she didn't say she hated it. Still blushing, she muttered that from now on, he'd need to file a prior application if he wanted to do that sort of thing again. Tasuku, bewildered, asked what a prior application even meant. Brushing it off, he bent down to pick something up, saying their case should be solved now, until he paused after spotting something inside a book. It was a card. They brought it to Ritsu and presented it, explaining that this was the item at the center of the case. Ritsu laughed awkwardly, trying to play it cool, saying it wasn't too bad and even claimed they deserved her praise. Tasuku muttered about how condescending that sounded. Ritsu took the book and flipped through its pages frantically. Tasuku pulled out the card and asked if this was what she was looking for. Ritsu panicked and shouted at him to give it back. Tasuku calmly stated that it was her school ID. It had been inside the book. He clarified that what he was about to say was only his guess. Tasuku theorized that Ritsu had been assigned to organize the library books a few days ago, but had ended up slacking off and reading instead. She had used her school ID as a bookmark. However, on one particular day, a large load of books had been moved into the prep room, and she had lost her ID in the process. Because she couldn't admit to losing her student ID and slacking off, she decided to submit a vague request to them instead. He asked if he was wrong. Ritsu, trembling, denied the accusation with an unconvincing stutter, insisting he was way off. Tasuku, internally confident, thought to himself that he had nailed it. He then told Ritsu he'd be handing the ID over to the student council and would, of course, fill them in on everything that had happened. Ritsu panicked, shouting that she took it all back and begged him not to report it. Apologizing desperately, Yazumi then commented about the detective club's club room, and Ritsu interrupted, giving them full permission to use it. Frustrated, she muttered under her breath as Tasuku and Yazumi both let out tired sighs. Ritsu turned away in defeat. Yazumi, still blushing slightly, quietly praised Tasuku for a job well done. Tasuku, flustered, thanked her in return. As she turned her face away again, he wondered to himself, was it just me, or did she seem even colder than before? The next morning, Tasuku was walking to school, yawning groggily. As he passed by, a girl greeted her friend with a cheerful, "Good morning," and the other responded with excitement, saying the detective club had been doing extremely well lately. "They've been on a roll," she added. The first girl nodded, commenting that flyers from the club could be seen everywhere. Hearing this, Tasuku walked proudly, thinking to himself that he had properly solved that case from last time, and wondered if he had finally earned a better reputation. But just then, the second girl added that word had it Akechi had been solving cases left and right. The first girl chimed in again, saying she'd also heard Yazumi had won against the student council. Tasuku's pride immediately deflated. Stunned, he muttered that he clearly hadn't done enough to build a reputation for himself. Before he could dwell too long on the thought, someone called out his name. He turned to see Akechi and Yazumi approaching. Akechi greeted him casually with a "morning," and Yazumi added a polite, "Good morning." Tasuku blinked in surprise, remarking that they actually wore school uniforms like everyone else. Akechi blinked and replied with mock offense, saying of course they did. Their usual flashy outfits were only for club activities. He then teased Tasuku, asking if seeing them in uniform made his heart skip a beat. Tasuku brushed it off with a straight face, saying, "As if." Akechi pouted dramatically, saying it was about time. Tasuku's heart fluttered for them. Their conversation was interrupted as Tasuku noticed a crowd gathering. He asked what was going on, and they turned to see a red carpet laid out in front of a luxury car. The door opened, and out stepped Aruse, elegantly greeted by someone who wished her a good day at school. "Thank you," she replied with a graceful smile. Akechi and Yazumi greeted her cheerfully. "Oh, it's Toka, good morning," they said. Tasuku, meanwhile, stood in disbelief, wondering what on earth was going on. As Aruse approached and greeted everyone, Tasuku couldn't help but blurt out, asking if she always acted like that. Aruse tilted her head innocently, saying she didn't think her way of coming to school was strange. Tasuku pointed to the red carpet and asked if she seriously thought that was normal. Aruse explained that she was rather fragile. If she walked all the way to school, she'd collapse, and if she took the train, she'd get caught in the crowds and arrive late. Tasuku sighed and muttered that she was unbelievably weak. Akechi overheard and commented that Aruse was extremely persistent with that excuse. Aruse turned to Tasuku and offered, "You could come pick me up, you know." Tasuku flatly refused. Just then, Aruse glanced behind her and noticed someone watching. Her expression shifted briefly. Tasuku asked what was wrong, but Aruse shrugged it off, saying it was probably nothing. The next moment, they were seated in the club room. Tasuku asked seriously if the person earlier was her stalker. Aruse nodded, confirming that she'd felt someone tailing her. She also mentioned that items in her desk and locker had been moved around. Akechi, lounging on the sofa, winced and muttered, "Yikes." Yazumi asked if she was okay. Aruse assured them she was fine. She was used to attracting weirdos. Tasuku thought to himself how unpleasant that sounded. Aruse chuckled and added that Tasuku used to comfort her all the time. He quickly called her out for fake crying back then. Akechi leaned forward and said he was genuinely worried about Arus. "Aren't you Tasuku?" he asked. Tasuku replied that of course he was. Arusi then gave a chilling smile and declared there was no need to worry. She'd crush the stalker by any means necessary. Tasuku thought to himself, horrified, that she might actually be dangerous. Aruz mentioned she'd reach out to the assassination squad and her family to handle it. Tasuku snapped, asking how starting with an assassination force made any sense. Aruz laughed and said she was only joking, but Tasuku wasn't convinced. He thought that, if left alone, Aruse would definitely overdo it. Determined, Tasuku stood up and told her he'd handle the stalker. Aruz looked at him curiously, then smiled and said she had a good plan. Tasuku looked wary as she explained. Moments later, the two of them were walking down the hall hand in hand, arms linked like a couple. Students whispered and stared. One asked if those two were actually dating, and another muttered about their relationship. Tasuku whispered to Aruz, asking what she was trying to pull. Aruz explained that they'd lure the stalker out by pretending to date and acting all lovey-dovey. Tasuku questioned her sanity, but Aruse reminded him she was the top scorer in their year. Tasuku replied that that was exactly why he was skeptical of the plan. As they walked even closer, he asked if it was really necessary for her to cling so tightly. Aruz insisted it was vital to make the stalker believe they were truly a couple. She nuzzled against him, claiming it was just part of the plan. Tasuku didn't buy it. Her flushed face and teasing tone betrayed her. Aruz laughed and asked if he was getting overwhelmed, apologizing mockingly for being so stunning. Irritated, Tasuku decided to play along. He pulled her close and wrapped an arm around her, saying that if they were doing this, they might as well go all the way. Aruz blushed deeply and replied that he was finally getting it. From a distance, Akichi and Yazumi observed the scene. Akichi noted that there didn't seem to be any suspicious presence around. Yazumi agreed, and Akichi added that they needed to prepare to corner the stalker if they emerged. But both of them quickly got distracted watching Tasuku and Aruz, feeling a little jealous. Later, Tasuku and Aruz were sitting together, Tasuku even helping her put on her shoes. At one point, she casually sat on his lap like he was a chair. Out on the school grounds, students were making lunch plans, while Tasuku and Arusi sat on a bench. Aruze noted that the stalker hadn't shown up yet. Tasuku, meanwhile, wondered if all they'd been doing was flirting, and if they might have crossed a strange line. Holding his lunchbox, he asked Aruz if she was actually enjoying this. She denied it with a smirk, saying it was just amusing to watch him get flustered. Tasuku groaned, saying that made it worse. Aruz quickly changed the subject and hinted that couples often did a certain thing during lunch. Tasuku looked at her suspiciously. She leaned in and opened her mouth, clearly expecting him to feed her. Tasuku recoiled, blushing, and said couples didn't go that far. Aruz giggled, calling him a stick in the mud. She then asked if he'd made that lunchbox himself. Tasuku replied that he did. He lived only with his grandpa. Aruz smiled and said she'd have him feed her tomorrow. Tasuku blinked in shock and asked if they were doing this again tomorrow. Aruz casually replied that she was just joking. Tasuku frowned and told her she was too relaxed for someone with a stalker. Aruze replied that it wasn't unusual. People following them was nothing new in her family. Tasuku commented that her family was extremely strange. Aruz just shrugged, saying it was no big deal for her. But Tasuku looked at her seriously and said she was lying. Arusi stopped. He explained that she always averted her eyes when she lied. It was an old habit of hers, and he'd remembered it. Aruz looked stunned for a moment, then smiled gently. She teased him, reminding him how he'd once said her figure had become so impressive he didn't recognize her when they reunited. Tasuku groaned, telling her to stop making things up, but Aruz softened, her smile quieter this time. She admitted that her heart fluttered today, but not because of the danger. Tasuku, surprised, asked what she meant. Aruze leaned in close, her cheeks flushed. From the bushes, Akichi and Yazumi watched breathlessly. Aruze placed her hand on the bench and whispered, "Say, Tasuku, want to kiss me?" Her face hovered inches from his. Her eyes locked onto his. Tasuku froze, red-faced and wide-eyed. Even Akechi and Yazumi, watching from afar, turned bright red in shock. Still close, Aruz added softly, "If I asked you that, what would you think of me?"